Hi, this is Misha, and I've got a rifle here that I think I need to have Rob Ski check the headspace out on. Something is it's not right with it, but I can't quite put my finger on it. Oh dear. Being serious, I've got a pretty interesting parts kit here from Arms of America. This, as you saw in the beginning, is a 1963 dated Romanian PM-63. So first year of production for the AKM type rifle at the Cugir or Cugir or whatever factory. Some people have said they produced in 62, but I've not ever been able to find evidence, so first year we'll go with. This was a kit that Arms of America had come in. It was kind of a little bit of a special thing for being matching and of the original parts. So that we just look at it briefly. It has a few interesting features. Before we talk about the kit though, what Arms of America did, back in 2005, the government no longer allowed barrels to come in with parts kits. So barrels had to be cut up if they were used previously in a machine gun. Currently in 2018, there are two import options for barrels, thankfully. We can get virgin barrels from FB-Radom in Poland and Cugir in Romania. Both are AKM profile, both are 16¼ inches. Both are cold hammer forged and both are chrome lined. They come in a little bit differently to make them quote unquote sporting, but the basic idea is they need a little bit of finishing out to make them usable on a gun, but they're generally speaking good to go. The only major difference between perhaps quality assurance QC differences between Cugir and FB is that the FB barrels come in blued and the Cugir barrels come in phosphated. This is why, with this kit, Arms of America chose to use an FB barrel. Because the early Romanian guns, like many early AKMs, for example, East Germany and Poland, were blued. Now later they would go to a duller bluing, kind of a salt blue, and even phosphating, but early on they would use quite a high polished blue. So that's why they opted to go with the slightly higher grade FB barrel, so it would kind of match the bluing on the kit. Another interesting feature of these early guns, we have hardwood furniture, upper and lower. We also have the palm swell. For the first couple of years of production, Cugir would not use the dong grip that we know today. They would use the standard AKM palm swell. Now the upper is hardwood, and they would go to laminate quite quickly for a reason. These cracked very easily. In fact, you can see a shallow crack here on this one. Because of how this wood is shaped and how thin it is, hardwood upper handguards crack extremely easily. They learn this in other nations as well. Other features of this front end, before I put it down, we have a 14mm threaded muzzle with muzzle nut, which is correct for an earlier gun. AKM bayonet lug, cleaning rod, typical AKM rear sight, forged, of course, front trunnion. And I should mention that, of course, the gas block and front sight base are also forged. Later, I believe in the late 70s, early 80s, Cugir would switch over to using investment cast components. But these were made to military quality, so of course they work just fine. They would also eventually go over to a cast style handguard retainer slash sling loop. Some would even have cast rear sight bases. As for the rest, the dust cover is pretty typical AKM. It's the earlier ribbed pattern, stamped of course. bolt group is pretty typical. It has the earlier style recoil guide without the lip here. This is machined. Later ones could be cast as well. Gas piston. Non-lightning cut bolt carrier, which I've also observed on early Soviet AKMs from 61, 62. But we do have a lightning cut bolt, is what I was getting at. So the bolt has the scallops, yet the carrier does not yet. It also has the original pattern of cocking handle, and this one still has the trip for the full auto out of battery safety device. Otherwise, pretty typical. We also have a smooth hardwood pistol grip. Romania would put these on their guns very early on, just for the first 2.5 years, before switching over to the Bakelite we all know and love. Has the metal top here. This one is stuck on pretty good, so I'm going to leave it. But that's to keep it abutting up against the receiver and cracking. It's its own pattern to some extent, but it's very similar to other smooth pistol grips. And finally, we have got the Trunnion here, hardwood buttstock, early style, trapdoor in it, AKM sling swivel, very typical. Several other nations would use hardwood stocks as well before going over to the laminate. This would be a type of beech wood, and often Romania would stain it to a darker color. I have the rear trunnion too. This is the earlier style rear trunnion. Notice it doesn't have the donut in the middle. Rather, it has the cutouts on each side. I've heard some people call these the hourglass rear trunnion. I do notice that it's a little more angular and sharp, less of a curve than some of the others I've seen, but that's a minor thing. You can definitely tell it's an earlier AKM type rear trunnion. And it is, of course, forged. As with a lot of the other components, some late production rear trunnions in military guns can actually be cast as well. Otherwise, we just have a bag of parts, and I just noticed before doing the video that both bags have a hole in them, so I'm not going to drag everything out. A few things to take note. Safety. Very typical early AKM safety. Boop, boop. See, it's still got the full auto. Nothing too special there. Got a full auto trigger group in here, complete. Here's our trigger guard. We have the early style of stamped. I don't think that's machined. I think it's stamped. Mag catch there, trigger guard. But pretty typical. And the rest of the components in here, you get the idea. Small bits and bobs. Trigger hammer, mostly trigger stuff, stock, screws, things like that. Most of it is neat. And what I think is neat about the way Arms of America has been doing these kits, this is how kits always used to come in, like the old so-called Romak-I kits. You had the front end. The only difference was you would have the back of the receiver here too. So you'd have the receiver cut off here with just a little bit of the stamping, which was really more a pain in the butt than anything, because the receiver chunk had no writing on it and it was stamped 1mm, so you couldn't really use it for much of a re-weld anyway. All your markings are on your trunnion, so all the little leftover receiver was there for is just to make you have to cut the rivets to peel it off. At least this is already done, and they did a pretty neat job of removing everything. After the barrel band, kits just never look the same. Before, you'd order a kit, you'd get a whole front end like this, and it looked like part of a gun. Afterwards, you just got a bag of disconnected parts with no barrel holding them together. So I think it's nice that now we can at least get kits that look like kits again. Also, it saves a lot of time. You don't have to drill the pins holes for the pins here. That's already done. Get your handguard retainer cutout done. That's all done. All the spacing's done. Best of all, the head spacing is done. Where's my bolt? There's my bolt. This is already head spaced out for you here. So you don't, I would still suggest checking head space just to be safe after the build. But since this is a matching kit and since they've head spaced it with this barrel, you should be good to go. In fact, that's part of the sales pitch. So they say this is head spaced out, and I believe them. Best of all, they did not fully drive in the barrel pin. That's because most people who want to build, they'll get it head spaced, they'll press the barrel out, they'll rivet the front trunnion into the receiver, and then they'll press the barrel back in and drive the pin through. So that's why they don't drive the pin all the way through. They just leave it sticking out. So it's easier to get out for building. They don't refinish these. They just leave them with their original finish, which on this one is quite very nice. I'm glad they left it on here. We built quite a few rifles using other kits. We used quite a few of their Polish and their East German. We've had a couple of other Romanians. This one, though, was special. I don't think it was ever on their website because of being a first-year production, and it has a complete original stock set. The hardest pieces to find are having a nice pistol grip, and the hardest piece is this upper handguard, because most of them crack and shatter and are replaced in military service. The hardwood lowers and stocks are much easier. So I just thought we'd share an interesting kit with you, and also what Arms of America has been doing with their kit builds, and we've been very happy. We've had a few minor complaints from customers and also a few minor issues of small parts missing. Anything will happen. I only bring this up to say that when I have brought this to Arms of America's attention, they have been excellent. Their customer service has been great. They have immediately shipped us any missing parts. They've done a couple of exchanges on kits that customers weren't happy with and wanted a different one. So their customer service, to our experience so far, has been A+. And again, most of the kits we've received have been very, very nice, and the customer is very, very happy. But, if you order in multiples of something, once in a while there's going to be an issue or two. For example, one guy, he found a little bit of surface freckling, rusting right here on the back of the front sight base on his kit, and he didn't like that. And they actually took it back and made it right with him, so that was pretty nice. Well, if you yourself are interested in doing a kit build, I would definitely jump into one of these Romanian or one of their Polish or one of their East German kits while they are still available, because so far most all of them have been in very nice shape, mostly matching. Major parts have all been matching. Once in a while you'll get like a mismatched gas tube or something, but yeah, all in all the quality has been excellent, and we just don't see many high-grade kits these days. Most of the kits come out of the Balkans, former Yugoslavia, and they're just used up. Well, if you like this video, maybe we'll consider doing more parts kit videos in the future. This is kind of experimental, so forgive me for kind of not knowing what I'm doing too well here. It's kind of a first for us, but I really wanted to share something unique. If you like the video, as always, please click like. And if you'd like to help us actually make this kit into a working gun, please consider going over and checking out our Patreon page. We have different reward levels, and we try to give back to the community and just share this love of all things milsurp and firearms. Well, this is Misha, and if you're nervous about me pointing this at you, you got problems, guy. It's not even a gun. Not even close. Appreciate you tuning in. We'll catch you next time.